afternoon. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Option Pit Live on the Tradier Hub. It is I, Andrew Giovinazzi, your other option, with Licia.
Good morning.
Queen of the Candles and the Duchess of Doge to regale us on what is going on with the charts. We actually have some action, a little bit of action. And we also have a special guest star in our favorite Canadian coming on mid-show. All right, so the action, well, I guess we'll start with just the regular news. I'm looking at some of the numbers coming out here. Retail sales. They look like they were red today. Not good. Export prices going up a little bit. Manufacturing index looks green. Retail sales not looking okay. Year over year, okay. I guess kind of a mixed bag on all the numbers coming out at 8:30. What's your take, Licia, on first that, and then we'll talk about the week that was after we've had a week to digest the election results and the relief that it's over. We'll start with you. What's your take on that gig?
It does feel like it's being digested right now, right? We're kind of taking that pause after this major league run-up.
Yep.
And everything. Actually, Louise, if we can share my screen, look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is still bull flagging. If it's going to be a leader in this marketplace, it's bull flagging off of my support level. So I think Bitcoin has room to run higher.
It's almost like they think, I don't know what. So Trump is going to issue Bitcoin with his likeness on it at this point. I don't know what is causing it to moon like this, except the fact
Treasury. There are, states and possibly the U.S. Treasury. They want to add it to their portfolios, right? They want to add it to their. They want to sell bonds and add Bitcoin. Right.
The only thing I can think of is, let's see, South Sea Islands crisis. How tulip bulb mania. I understand that the Bitcoin thing is like, but it is, let's just say it is an odd store of value. I'm going to leave it at that. There's a lot of Bitcoin bulls. It is crazy. And by the way, I don't short stuff like that. I think that's, why short something that's just mooning? It's crazy.
Right.
But like you said, it's bull flagging and it's really not losing its luster. How about if we just go to the regular, the broad market indexes, and then you can hit the dollar for us? I think that would be a little instructive as well.
Well, the dollar, let's look at the dollar. The dollar has absolutely skyrocketed. It was already on a major league rally. And then here we were the day after the election results, and it just took off. Right now it's taking a little pause at this previous high, which it busted out over, but unless today is a change in trend candle, the dollar looks very strong. Very strong. And that's due to the tariffs and all that he's talking about.
Right. Now we had the euphoria Trump, right? So it almost feels like his whole tenure in office is now being compressed into a week. Like his 4 years is now, okay, he's hitting the ground running. He's making announcements on what he wants to do. You've got the Doge team out there, right, on the internet. They're, like the Avengers, and they're already saying, hey, wait a minute. The government spends $500 billion last year or last year over the last several years, something like this, earmarking dollars for projects and things that have expired. They still keep funding them, even though there's no law to keep them in place. Which doesn't surprise me, but you see those things, and here's my question: that's making the dollar stronger, but is it coming out in the bond market? As Mark likes to say, the bond is the dog, the big dog, and the equity is the little tail. are we seeing the bond market stabilize somewhat yet? And what's kind of the charts telling you on that one?
Kind of hard to say. The 10-year here is sitting on support, possibly trying to recover here. I would say it's a possibility. TLT had a major league bearish day Wednesday, but held my support at 89.60. And yesterday was an inside Harami day.
Yeah, I felt like after Powell spoke at 3:00, the market sell-off kind of gained a little bit of it gained a little weight on the downside. I don't know what he said. It felt like he started sounding hawkish. And of course, you and I agree, like with good reason.
Yes.
Until
hello, you just raised 3/4 of a point and you're talking about more. I mean, the 3/4 probably, I don't, in my opinion, they need to step back and just let the market breathe. Let, you know, the economy, the markets, employment, inflation, everything, just leave it alone for a minute, right? In my opinion.
It's almost like a trade you have on and you feel like you have to keep touching it. Just like, I like Mark's phrase on this. It's really funny. Sometimes we're doing trading and he's like, dude, what are you doing? You know, and I've been doing this for a while, but sometimes you just do stupid stuff. He's like, dude, that's trade abuse. Stop it. Leave it alone, man. It's trade abuse. Leave the trade alone. Because I'm not sticking to the plan, right? And they feel like the Fed now is sort of like, guys, you raised. Now you need to let Uncle Sam respond. It's like,
well, they raised and then they lowered.
And then I hear like on the news, like the Republicans potentially are just going to press through a massive spending bill into the end of the year. Possibly. Like, did anybody that is in office hear what people wanted? Like,
they don't care.
And I think that, you know, like just the fact that the elected officials on both sides are so stupid.
Yeah.
And
they don't care. They know better than we do.
Yeah.
They know better.
And the worst thing is, what do they spend it on? I guess we're going to know later.
They know better. They've been there forever. Pelosi just applied to run in 26. The woman's been there since 1987. I'm sorry. Step down. It's someone else's turn. I don't care what side you're on. They have to bring in term limits. It's insane.
I mean, Pelosi, you know, first lady speaker of the House, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But I think, I think as we look at this, let's bring, and I think that's what Trump did. He's bringing in some new blood, 40-somethings for the most part. Let's give it a try. Let's change things up.
40-somethings so they could stay there till they're 80.
Yeah. Well, we still need term limits. 100%.
Exactly.
So we have, so the markets are pulling back a little bit. I think for the most part, you know, for Donald Trump, he's kind of doing what he said he was going to do. Nothing, I would say, ultra Trumpian yet. Kind of rolling with the agenda. Congress, I believe, is already doing what they do, which is being useless and spending money right now. So they haven't moved in a positive. Of course, they'll see which way the wind blows, right? They just had an election and saw where the wind was blowing. But who knows with them? And I think at least the bond market holding up somewhat is a wait and see sign. So we'll see on that.
Well, yes, I was going to say TLT has an inside day yesterday off that big bearish candle. This could mean possibly that the support may hold.
Okay.
Now, are we going to get a giant rally? Most likely not, but I wouldn't go long TLT until it trades over 93 personally, but
right. I mean, if you're a bond trader, you like what you're hearing out of one place, but not the other, sort of. Don't you think?
Yeah.
What's your support level? Sorry, I talked over you there, but.
No, that's okay. The resistance is at 91.5, but I certainly would not go long until over 93.
Okay.
TLT.
So you want to see some momentum build right now, and
Yes.
I agree with that.
Yes.
So so now we have, and I guess then we can do a slight mention here. I'm going down just through the news. I will mention just again one stock, SMCI, if you want to pull that up. This to me is kind of like, this is odd, right? SMCI. So a huge buyer of NVIDIA chips, and all of a sudden they're under threat of delisting because they can't file financial records, and of course the New York Stock Exchange. So for people that want to short it, I would caution, because there is some weirdness around exercise when a stock gets delisted. So if you're shorting it, you want to make sure you kind of close the puts prior to. There is some oddness around delisting because of locating the shares when you exercise a put. It's not, I think personally, I think this is something that should be fixed by the OCC. It should not be confusing. If you short a stock and it goes to zero, or you buy a put and the stock goes to zero, you should be able to exercise for your dough. Like, to me, that is not cool.
Yes.
But again, I think the OCC, they could loosen up, or the SEC can loosen up the rules on shares to borrow because the stock is being delisted. But or make a more clear rule. But what is going on with this stock? It is in free fall, and
it is down $100 since March.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And NVIDIA,
Well, $80 since June.
Yep. And I know it fuels a lot of, speculation. So from a money-making point of view, again, worrying about, I think NVIDIA, I hate the idea of shorting it into the earnings because it's NVIDIA, but I don't think this is great news, although, it's not the first time a company has pulled like an Enron or a WorldCom and sort of, screwed up a good position. But I just realized, though, you know what time it is, though, right now, Licia?
I see it.
It's time for our special guest, Hans Albrecht, who we're adding to the Option Pit team. Our favorite Canadian. Hopefully Lewis can bring him in and we can get Hans's take on the market and what he's thinking over the last week. Hello, Hans. Welcome.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. So
great conversation so far. I think you guys have touched upon some really, really interesting stuff, from Trump to NVIDIA to what the heck is going on with SMCI. I got out of my NVIDIA position yesterday because I'm starting to look at it going, this is kind of the last man standing. Like, it's, you look around and it's been a bit of a train wreck in that sector. And to your point, Andrew, this is a sector that has deep connections and relationships. And, it's hard to believe that NVIDIA is going to be completely immune to, what the rest of the sector is kind of showing us, which is, it's quite possible that everything is just, Blackwell is off the charts. Jensen's been pushing this thing for so long.
Right.
This would really be something if he got this completely wrong. But I agree. And I was looking at something the other day. They were talking about how NVIDIA is bigger than 5 entire G7 stock markets. 5 of them.
Wow.
It's massive. And the whole world is now invested. We've got something like 18% of international investors in the US markets. There's, I think it was Torsten Slok who said this is becoming like a big leverage play on NVIDIA. There is so much, and that's probably what might keep our VIX a little bit steady. I don't know what you think, Andrew, into next week, because it is so important. We keep going from the most important event ever, the most important election, the most important FOMC, the most important, most importance for the last couple of months. And yet again, we've got another one next week.
Well, VIX ultimately, you see vol, like, so if we, with VIX trading, like it traded as low as 14, the market is still moving too, right? So stocks have been going up. The last couple of days have been kind of sideways, but ultimately it's very hard for VIX to go into. It looked like it wanted to go. It traded in the 13 handle briefly, but then stocks started to move again. The only way it gets lower into the holidays is for the market to start acting like the holidays, which means not moving, not doing much intraday, and kind of ignoring all of the catalysts that are on the calendar. So, but still you had some inflation news. I think the market didn't react great to it, mostly because inflation stopped going down. The trajectory is a little up still. Not a lot, but
firm, yeah, a little
certainly
bit of
not
super core, a little bit firm. And so, one of you made an earlier point about this is inflation kind of coming back, and I think it's almost an example of careful what you wish for. So the voters voted for Trump, and I think that's kind of cool in a lot of ways. Actually, we're going to see things shaken up. I want to see some, it's going to be a bull in a china shop a little bit, right? Things are going to be breaking, and there'll be some entertainment value, but it's interesting to see that. I mean, he wants tariffs, he wants protectionism, he wants things that are going to be inflationary. And by the looks of things, one of the big things that really sunk Harris was inflation, right? People were just, whether it was Biden's fault or anyone's fault, they kind of took the brunt of inflation, especially at the sort of let's say lower income levels. Let's say there's a good portion of a population that is maybe just kind of struggling to get by. And those people went, okay, enough. But you voted in somebody who's not exactly necessarily going to help. And plus, there's another thing. A lot of GDP is actually supported by government spending. If you back out government influence, suddenly, you've got a big negative there. So, okay, let's cut the fat. Let's get rid of this and that and whatever. But you're kind of rooting for something that could make things difficult for the economy in a sense. So there's a lot of cross currents going on here.
Mhm.
I agree too. And I think too, if Trump's doing one thing is inflationary on one hand and then cutting government spending on the other, that might be could be net flatter inflation, but it could be noisy, right?
Well, it's
Very
going to be
noisy. And when I was with Longo on Option Insider Radio, we used to joke like, how did VIX get to 9% under Trump his first year? That was the last time. That was 8 years? Hard to believe, 8 years ago. But that's the last time we had volatility that low. But in order to do that, the path has to be relatively clear. Like pretty much the only thing he was trying to do then was cut taxes. So everybody was pretty jazzed about that. There's a lot more. The pot that they're stirring is a little different this time, I feel. So we could get a jaggedy VIX, but also, I mean, look what we're talking about. 1% from all-time highs. VIX went from 1390 to 1465. And, as I look at the upside calls, you want to see, is there a bid for these options? Are they starting to bid up, let's say, VIX November calls? So if I look at the price of those, so an easy thing to think is how scared is everybody? All right, well, the no 17 calls are 23 cents. The 16 calls are 35 cents, expiring next Wednesday morning. The 15 calls are 55 cents. So it's there wasn't a lot of, and I actually have a graphic here that I wanted to show people. If you want to show my screen here, Lewis, there we go. All right. So this is an option pit thing. I call it the skewulator. But what it does is it records the first print of the day. It actually does several things. But anyway, just to make life easy on everybody, this is a picture of the S&P 500 volatility curve. So unless you're a vol geek, you don't care about this. But Licia, Hans, and I, since we got the slight vol geek in us, this is stuff that we used to deal with as market makers. So the blue line is the first print of the day. And then if you see the line kind of going down like this, that's volatility dropping per strike. It's not decaying, but actual implied volatility, the register going, in this case, going down. So this is the last snap of the day yesterday. So I did the first record on just after the open, and actually for a while yesterday, vol actually was unchanged, and then by the end of the day they started taking it down again. Could be a little weekend effect in that, but it certainly did not catch a bid with the market going down. And I know that as an ex-liquidity provider, and Licia and Hans can remember, like, market is going up, 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 does not necessarily mean volatility is going down. Because if you're a market maker and you're selling calls and vol keeps going up,
especially
you're like,
at the top.
when will this ever end?
Especially at the top.
A little, Andrew.
It makes sense at the top.
It normalized a little bit, Andrew. We saw it was kind of a bizarre situation. Like, there's that old saying of, when everybody's looking at the left tail, they forget about the right tail. And so we saw that downside skew super, super cheap. People were really rushing in. I'm not sure it was necessarily bearish. There was some hedging going on, but people were hedging themselves at whatever cost was there because of August and September and those VIX blow-ups. You got to pay what you got to pay. And sometimes that's a positive because it allows you to stay long. So when when fund managers are buying protection, it's not necessarily bearish. It's so that they can stay in stocks and ride them up. But we saw some upside pretty cheap. And particularly in things like Tesla and Coin. I remember looking at Coinbase. The upside was absolutely not pricing in a Trump sweep. Now, I don't think anybody really expected it, but they were not pricing anything like that in. And in S&P as well, they were crushing that upside. And so part of what you've seen, maybe you can maybe disagree or agree, is we saw a little bit of normalization because that upside move was quite strong. So movement is movement. And we kind of repriced that upside. And that's why things maybe haven't collapsed as much, as well as NVIDIA and a few other. If 450 on the 10-year close is going to make people nervous too.
So this was I think a reflection of yesterday, or of that, just a little relaxing of the curve. The way upside calls now started to relax. So you can see, if you're an SPX trader, I was an SPX trader for a year, you kind of learned it the hard way, but the skew kind of moves in many ways, flex kind of from the at the money. This is old school, but what you see is like upside volatility. The drop in vol was a little bit more pronounced on the upside than the downside. So that's basically the separation of the two charts is a little more on the top than the bottom. So, what it says to me is there's a little bit of relaxing on the upside. 6,000 was our number. We hit the number, and now we're going to bake a little bit. So we'll see what that does for volatility. Usually that's not, and any kind of news can come out, like we talked NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA could be like a little weird, even though demand for chips, I think it's hard to doubt, but it's pretty dang high for whatever NVIDIA is making. I mean, if you think about it, Frank talked about this for our presentation this week, but demand for chips is so high and demand for energy is so high. And this is another topic we touched on, that, Mag 7 companies are now directly contracting for nuclear power. Okay, so you have to think about that. So I'm a huge company and I'm going to directly contract for nuclear power. That means they need to buy, they are expecting to buy a ton of chips for that. So
they want control, don't they? They want control of that aspect of things. That's what it says to me, and which is very bullish to me.
I think so too, and I think it's bullish for the chip sector. We have to get through this SMI strangeness right now, but that's kind of anyway. So that was the point is we did not see a big press for volatility when we sold off from the top. So today we'll see what happens. We have a bit of a sell-off, but anyway, are there anything sectors that you're looking at, Hans, directly, that, or anything of interest to you that you saw this week that could be a little spice to the listener, something that, a name you saw, anything interesting that might have popped up?
Well, the whole kind of restaurant, fast food area is kind of interesting. I wonder if RFK Jr. is going to sort of throw that area under the bus a little bit. One name I do like within that, it's executing. If you look at sort of sales within the, the McDonald's, all these sort of typical names, they've been compressed a little bit. And I don't know if RFK is going to really help that, but Shake Shack is one interesting name where I think they're doing all the right things and they're really in expansion mode. So I think that's kind of an outlier that maybe looks interesting to me. So I've been selling some downside options in Shake Shack, doing okay in that. So looking at just from a little bit of a contrarian play in there. Beyond that, I'm liking, it kind of sounds boring and cliche, but I kind of like Meta and Apple for almost a little bit of safety if chips are under a little bit of pressure here. They tend to run into things like Apple just for, it's just a big giant balance sheet behemoth, lots of cash, steady. I mean, their services business has just exploded. So really nice name to kind of hide in there. So I agree with you. I think it's a bit of a hide a little bit. We've had a little, maybe some of the performance, future performance has kind of been brought forward a little bit here. And I think we kind of, I'm not super bearish here, but I think we kind of grind up. So I'm thinking from an option play, just kind of look at upside, maybe, calendars and iron condors and things that can kind of, because I'm looking at things from an income standpoint.
Right.
And I think they're just going to keep hammering that volatility, right? I used to run 700 million in option overlay funds that did a lot of cover call selling. And guess what we do when vols popped a little bit? We started hammering calls.
Right.
And I think that's what you're going to see over the next really 6-7 weeks. You're going to see dealers get saddled with all these option positions. And what that means is we probably see less and less volatility. So that's kind of my bet, is that we don't sell off too much here and we start to make a little bit of a grind higher. And I think you want to look at things that are going to take advantage of that. And so that gets me excited. So cybersecurity, for example, I think it means you want to be in good areas. So Palo Alto, for example, is interesting to me.
Palo Alto is what?
PANW.
PANW, that's right.
Yeah, PANW, really, really nice play. It sort of emerged after CrowdStrike ran into some problems, even though CrowdStrike's come back quite nicely. And so I've been in this name from the low 300s, and the volatility was really, really low at one point. So I kind of just let the stock run. And I think that's part of my approach to income, which is, what I'm really focused on at Option Pit, is finding ways to generate income for folks. Is there's a time to sell options and there's a time to not sell options, right? Being a good, I used to tell that, say that to advisors in the old days. I'd say, not the old days, but I'd say, look, I'm a covered call seller, but I don't like to sell calls. And they'd look at me like, a dog looks at you with this sort of sideways look. And I said, no, I want to be given edge. I want to be convinced to do something. And
right.
And so when Palo Alto ran up, it hit, went from 330 to 375. Suddenly the vols were juicy again because we were starting to absorb all this election, geopolitical, et cetera. And that was a nice time to hammer out some calls. So my approach is really looking for that edge. And if it's not there, then I don't want to participate. So that's kind of another area I like to look at too.
So I guess we're going to have an exciting roundup at the end of the show, but I realize right now without Mark, there's really no segue, Licia, since I know you're on the farm and after the show, probably, I know you're on the farm in Texas, but if you have to drive a tractor, let's say.
I was just going to say that.
How
about a tractor, Andrew?
Exactly, a lot of tractors. So that is a vehicle. So I just segued myself, I guess. I should have let you do it, but I'm trying
That's
to
okay.
I'm trying the mark thing, but I don't know how to stop talking actually.
Are they doing self-driving tractors yet? I want one of those.
Exactly.
Oh, definitely. They definitely uses the GPS, and yeah,
Wow.
you just sit in the cab and it does it all on its own, for sure.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Now I know where all the food comes from. Anyway, but I will segue. So Hans and Licia, you have about 7 or 8 minutes to go get some coffee and to chill. And Lewis will bring you back in. But right now, I will hit my my trading vehicle, which
Take it away, Andrew.
Thank you, thank you. So yesterday, Amazon. Okay, and I'm a fan of the Amazon stock. Yesterday though, but so yesterday they're like, okay, we're going to get into the space that HIMSS do. They're going to be more aggressive with their healthcare. Now, Amazon, great company, but like customer service, like they're kind of a behemoth, you know. And HIMSS, you know, they have the ED, drugs, hair, all kinds of stuff like that. And you know, Trump got elected. I guess I don't know. Is Trump a user? I don't know, but crazy rally in the stock, $30. Now, I had this on a target list, and I kind of wished out, didn't buy it below 20 for my Flash 10 program at Option Pit, and it basically ran to my target already. So I kind of watched it just go up. I never did anything, but now, like with Amazon getting into the business, everybody's like freaking out, and they sold this hard. So like, is it an opportunity? Well, it reminded me of when Amazon bought Whole Foods in 2017. And I remember this was, and I thought this was a very good trade at the time, which I did. Walmart and Costco just fell apart. So if I look at like a long-term chart here, I got to go back a little farther. So like right here, you know, you see there's this kind of this falling apart here. I know it sounds crazy, but Costco dropped to the like low, I think 130, something like that. I want to try to, there we go. There we go. Hold on here. Let's see if we can move this around. There we go. Like right in here, you see this big dip? This was all Amazon getting into the grocery business. And everybody's like, they're just going to kill Costco and Walmart with deliveries. Whatever everybody was thinking at the time, because they're buying Whole Foods. You know, people have been to Whole Foods, they understand it's an entirely different business. But I believe the takeover got finished here like in August, right? So the takeover got completed like here by August 2017. And Walmart had totally recovered from the announcement. So the announcement, I had to remember exactly when it was. It might have been like late 2016. I think it took about a year. But by then, I mean, Walmart was up 40% from the bottom. Costco, obviously, monster stocks up fourfold from that. So my trading vehicle this week, what did I do yesterday? I sold some puts and HIMSS. I like the stock below 20. I thought it was a good growth company. Very popular, profitable internet company, profitable. And again, with the current administration, there probably is going to be maybe a little shakeup in the healthcare, like Hans was talking about earlier. We don't know how that's going to be. Don't know. New HHS secretary. I assume Kennedy is going to pass. He is a Kennedy after all. So looking for possibly ways to lower healthcare costs, making people more healthy, whatever. And I think that's part of the reason why HIMSS flew in the first place. Obviously, Amazon wanting to get in that business. So I thought this was an opportunity. I sold some puts. If I take delivery, I can live with it. And if the stock stabilizes, I will probably look at some calls to see if it starts to move back up again. But I just feel that history is repeating itself on this one. When people like using Amazon for ordering stuff, they have Amazon Prime. However, there are other alternatives like Netflix, which thrive. Other services that thrive, even though people get a lot of free stuff with Prime, because people like a different level of customer service. So there's room for other names. So it will be interesting to see how the healthcare sector shakes up. Probably, at least from my point of view, I think stocks like this have a lot of upside. So my trading vehicle for the week is selling puts in this. I sold the 20 puts in December. I got around $2 for them. They didn't look so good on the close. They might look better today. Who knows? But I put me in the stock at 18, and I thought 18 was a pretty good price to be a shareholder. Again, anything you do, make sure you have reasonable allocation. So me taking delivery, and I'll even buy a put if I need to stop the shares. But just make sure anything you do is reasonably sized for your account size. So that, selling some puts and HIMs, I think history might repeat itself as an opportunity. And that's the trading vehicle for today. And I'd like to bring Licia and Hans back in. And I think we want to talk. This is the fun part of the show. This is the fun part, Hans, because I know you're new. This is where we talk where we think today is going to end in some of the big numbers like SPY, Q, IWM, little vol prognostication, and maybe where we go for next week. So I will start with Licia so you can see the path, and then we all give and I'll wrap it up at the end.
Okay. Let me show you my SPX chart. I think it's possible today we could pull back to 5,900 easily. We're already down 30. Do they hold it down? Well, below 5,900, I have 5,865. That's some pretty good support there. Do they hold it down? I say no. I say if anything, we close down on the day like 25, 20 at the most. I think they sell it off a little bit, and then we may not be up on the day, but I don't think we end up down big.
Now, Licia, how about IWM? We usually talk about IWM a little because it just moonshot it.
Oh, it's not looking good again suddenly.
And it's collapsing. Actually, I bought puts in here yesterday, but I'm going to come back and retest this. It's going to probably come back and retest 232 and some change, and then I think it's going to try to close this gap. Now it's very sensitive to interest rates and all that, so if TLT holds the support, maybe it doesn't fall apart as quickly. We'll see. But it does look ugly. It has 3 bearish candles in a row, signaling a possible downtrend.
Okay. All right, Hans, what do you have for, so Licia, are you up or down on the day at the end? What's your kind of for today?
I say we close down 25 on the day.
Okay, 25 SPX. All right, Hans, you're up.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. IWM's looking a little, something like 50% of that index is floating into floating rate debt. I just don't see how this is going to work out too well for a lot of companies in there. Now, S&P, you know what? I'm going to go the other way. All due respect to Licia, I'm gonna let's spice it up, and I'm going to say we close unchanged. Or sorry, I'm going to say we close unchanged today. I think we rally back just because I feel like we're going to start grinding up. It might take till about 11:30 a.m. to be specific, till we start to grind up.
Buy the dip at 11:30.
I like that. I like that.
Mark your calendar. Yes. And but for VIX, so what do we do now? Are we prognosticating on VIX today or over the next week?
You could do a little VIX today. A 1-day VIX is not huge, but I maybe like a let's say 2-week trend into Thanksgiving. What are you feeling? Yeah. Is 15 the new, basically kind of some sort of resistancy area or top, everybody's going to be like resistance for VIX, whatever. I don't care. But like, can we really get over like 15, 16 again before Thanksgiving, or do we start to try to resettle and take lows? That's, I guess, the big one that people
into NVIDIA, I think it is possible. I think we could get into the high 15, 16-ish, and then we probably collapse. And then I'm looking for this thing to just head into the 13s again once we're past that.
Okay, so that's an interesting. That's the 20th. So we have literally, of course, the 20th is VIX expiration. So that just makes it super impossible for the November contract. So be warned, your November contract might not get a whole lot of action out of it, or lifting a little bit. I tend to agree there. I don't think we're going to get anything really below 14 now. Now that the bloom is off the rose of the rally. But today, I think from a today point of view for the broad market, like SPX, like these Fridays have had so many head fakes for the last year, this year, and they look ugly in the morning. So I'm going to kind of go with Hans on the morning. Like, if we can't hold these lows, we start rallying again. So I would say we can't hold the lows. I would even go a little, maybe by 10 o'clock, 10:30. If we're not going down, we're going to start going up again. And I think probably low for VIX for the day. If that happens, 1525. I'm sorry, 1425, maybe closing around 14. But so that's kind of where I am on this. Again, I could be totally wrong, but I think we're going to see that Friday madness. I don't think is dead, that we have had so many times this year, Licia, sitting and watching this. So anyway,
I'm a little surprised we're here, actually, to be honest. So to caveat my call yesterday was that we'd stabilize a little bit, and we didn't. We closed on the lows. So I was a little surprised at that. I kind of felt like that 6,000 pin would really kind of hang in there, and it hasn't. But it doesn't change my overall view. I think we kind of run into that, that JPM collar strike, that 60-50. I think we're just going to kind of grind up into that,
right,
especially after NVIDIA. But that's, again, could be wrong. Well,
it is 9:15. Hans, we need a good handle for you on the show, because we have I want to thank Licia, the Duchess of Doge, for helping in Queen of the Candles, coming from the big farm in Texas. Hans will get you a handle soon from Canada, I believe, somewhere around the Toronto area. And me, Andrew, in Maine. As you could tell, it was cold this morning, and my heat never works in my office. So this is Andrew Giovinazzi for Option Pit Live signing off. You can go to optionpit.com, check out all of our stuff. We're there every day. And as your other option, you all have a good trading day. Bye-bye.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.